Hey guys, today I want to talk about learning a new piece. Learning a new piece can be pretty daunting at first, so I thought I would give you just a general idea of the steps that I like to take when I'm learning a new piece for the first time. So the first thing I do is I familiarize myself with the music if I haven't already. A lot of times I'll choose my music based on a piece of music I've heard that I've already fallen in love with, and so I'm very familiar with it. But that's not always the case. Sometimes I've never heard the music before. A lot of times my teacher would tell me you should learn this piece, and I've never heard it. So you want to make sure that you're very familiar with it. And we have so many resources now, there's really no excuse for us to not be familiar with a piece of music. We have YouTube where we can watch live performances of it. We have Spotify, we have iTunes, we have so many different things that we can use. So make sure that you're listening to the music you're going to learn. Like I said, I tend to play music that I'm already in love with, and if I'm not in love with it, then I will fall in love with it before I start. So listen to the music first. The next thing is I take the sheet music and I figure out all of the bowings and all of the fingerings for the entire piece. Now, these might change later on as you are learning the piece more intimately, but it's really good to just go through the whole piece for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's good to just sit down and work out all of the bowings and fingerings ahead of time, just because it gives you that extra step. Or it takes away an extra step, I guess. You don't have to worry so much about figuring out the bowings and fingerings when you just want to sit down and work on the music. And another thing is, I really like going all the way through a piece to sort of give myself the comfort of knowing that I can do it. So when I figure out the bowings and the fingerings, I'm also playing it, albeit very slowly, I am playing it. And so it sort of gives me that reassurance that yes, I can do this, I can go all the way through, and this is not anything above what I'm capable of. So the next thing I do is when I'm sitting down and I'm actually ready to start working on the piece, I separate it into smaller sections. And I do actually take the music and I write out and bar off what my smaller sections are. And that's incredibly helpful for me to visually see it. And in the music, when you're working on it, you don't want to just sit down and say, okay, I'm going to work on the whole piece right now. That's way, way too much. So sometimes these sections are as small as 4 bars, and sometimes they're a little bit bigger, like maybe a half of a page, but try to make them at least, half of a large section. Don't make them too long. So just to give you an example, I'm going to take the courant from the first Bach cello suite, and I'm going to play for you just what my first small section would be. So even that can be just a little bit too long if you think you can even cut that in half. But that's generally the length of a section that I like to have. So then after that, after I've divided all of my sections up and I'm aware of what they are and where they are, then I start working on it. And I start working on slowing everything down. So my goal tempo for the courant is usually about 120 for the quarter note. I don't want to start there because it's not going to sound very good. So I'll start really, really slow. I'll usually start about half tempo. So it might sound something like this. You get the idea? And so after that, what I work on, I play this section at half tempo for at least 1 full practice session, if not 2. And what I do is I'll have the drone on, if that's possible, if the harmonies stay generally in the same place, which they tend to in the Bach cello suites, but I definitely have my tuner on. I'll sometimes have a MIDI file to play with to get my accuracy down, and that's what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on my intonation, I'm focusing on my accuracy. I'm making sure that the fingerings and the bowings I chose are the ones that I want to keep while I continue working on this and playing it forever. And when I do this, after I play at half tempo for a couple days, then I'll start to bump up the tempo a little bit. And if you've seen any of my videos on the 3x3 practice method, or any of the other practice methods I've introduced to you, then those are all really great for this kind of thing, for bumping up the tempo and increasing the speed. So after that, I work on my phrasing. So if I were to play this at just a pretty easy tempo for the courant. Without any phrasing whatsoever, it sounds kind of boring. It's really boring. There's no direction anywhere. There's no emphasis on any of the notes. The audience would, the audience would really not be very entertained. So this is what I like to work on. So you can do a couple different things here. Sometimes I like to do phrase mapping, which is something I refer to in some of my videos, where I'll take the sheet music and I'll actually mark out which notes and which points in the music I think are most important and how I'm going to get there, and as well as how intense they are and how far down or up I want the intensity to go. So for this, let's just take this phrase right here. I could either aim for the low note or I could aim for the second note. So that's a decision I'm going to have to make. Let's try for the lower note first. So I emphasize that a little bit too much, but I wanted you to hear what that sounded like. So I could also emphasize maybe the second note. So there I'm emphasizing the downbeat. And there are so many other things that go into phrasing. There's dynamics, there's tempo, there's pushing and pulling. And that's what you want to focus on here. This is not the last step necessarily, because all of these you're sort of going to be working on simultaneously, but it is one of the later steps that I like to take. So finally, if your piece is unaccompanied, then you don't have to worry about this, but if it is accompanied, then you want to be playing with the accompaniment. You at least want to be familiar with it. So what you can do is, you can either play with your accompanist if you have one, you might not, and that's perfectly fine. What you can do instead is take a recording and play along with it. Now, if the recording is maybe too fast or too slow for you, then put it in something like Amazing Slowdowner, where you can change the tempo to whatever you like. Either way, make sure that you are familiar with the accompaniment, because that will help when you start getting into rehearsals with whoever you're playing with. And so these are generally the steps that I like to take. Learning a new piece is not an overnight game. It's going to take a while. I take a very, very long time to learn and to perfect my music. And so don't be impatient with yourself. Take your time, go through these steps as slow as you need to, but just keep moving forward. So if you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment underneath the video. But until then, I will see you next time.